So welcome everyone to our National Center for Computer Science Education webinar for August. This year we're doing something a little bit different, or this month, and we're doing sessions that are info sessions and demos to try to help those that are getting geared up to start the academic year. So our first one is on Replit, and we are joined by Lina Sawyer, who is going to show us what Replit is all about and give us a nice demo and help answer questions that you might have. I know in particular, a lot of our teachers in our community for the center are actually looking to or are using Replit for CS Awesome. So it's good to see lots of familiar faces from CS Awesome here. And if you do not know who I am, it is a pleasure to meet you. I am Pauline Lake. I am the Curriculum and PD Coordinator for the National Center for Computer Science Education. And typically every month we host a webinar like this, where we can come and try to support you as educators. And if you have an idea for a session coming up, if it's something you'd like to see this year, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to try to set that up. And I think this is one of the most requested ones that we have had going into the new year is, what is Replit? How do we use it? How do we get set up? And so I thought it would be great to just do a demo session and have you all kind of here to ask the questions that you have all at once. So we are recording, and you can access the live transcription that is turned on if you would like to see the closed captions at the bottom of your screen. You're also welcome to use the chat feature, which I see many of you have already done and introduced yourselves. If you haven't done that yet, feel free to do that. Introduce yourself and what school you're at and how you might be using Replit if you aren't yet. And I think from there, we are ready to turn it over. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to spotlight Lina, and we are going to turn it over.
All right. Ooh, okay, awesome. I think someone might be unmuted. I'm just gonna mute you, Sheldon. All right, awesome. So welcome everyone. I know some of you might be really familiar with Replit, some of you not so much. I'm gonna start from the beginning so that we can all get on the same page. So I apologize if I might be repeating things you know. Maybe there'll be a little secret or cool tool that you didn't know about that you'll be able to learn. Plus, I have my wonderful colleague Derek here, who can definitely answer your questions. If you have some specific questions in the chat, feel free to ask them there. I'll make sure I get to all of them at the end as well. All right. And by the way, I always get ahead of myself. I forgot to introduce myself. My name's Lina. Pauline did this already. But I work in teacher and community success at Replit. So what that means is I try to make teachers as happy as possible and make sure that your students are very well cared for as well through our product. And that means support, that means live programs like PDs, webinars, office hours, you name it, I do it. And my past is actually as a museum educator. I've taught art, history, and digital learning programs in museums around the East Coast. So you can ask me about that another time. But let's jump into Replit. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my full desktop. Wonderful. All right. So for those of you who may not yet be familiar with Replit, it is a browser-based IDE. And so I saw in the chat, one of you is, some of you have had to use Replit during the pandemic. I'm guessing because it's still the pandemic. I'm guessing because you needed a tool that students could use on any device, that you didn't have to download, and that had everything all embedded in it. So that is Replit. And we are super, super Chromebook friendly. So this will be good for you. And there's no setup required. So you just create an account and you're ready to code. I loved it because when I was teaching, I had to manage digital space and had like 40 laptops that I would have to update all the time with new software and things. And Replit was a solution where all I had to do was make sure everyone had browser access, and right there, we're good to go. So to give you a basic sense of what it does, I'm just going to create a quick Python project. Okay, and I'm going to create a REPL. Now this is a REPL, it's a project. And what you'll notice is that we've got our file tree where you can upload assets. You can also have multiple types of files. So I made a Python project, but I could include any kind of file that I wanted in here. Then we've also got our text editor and our output pane, or our preview pane. Our run button is up here. And then on the side, we have our toolbar. And a lot of these tools are going to be a little different in Teams, but there are a few that I'm super excited about, which I'll go more in depth with in a moment. So we've got version control. We've got a debugger. I'll show you that in just a little bit. Packages. So if you're really interested in using, is it Panda? You can import Panda just right from here. Secrets. We've got settings. You can do a light theme or a dark theme. Database, unit tests, and Christmas logs. And I don't actually know what that does, sorry, but unit tests also look different in Teams. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. But what I want to show you in this REPL right now is that a couple of collaborative aspects in REPLs that are really exciting. So I'm going to invite you all in here by generating a join link. Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat. Go ahead and click on that, and let's do a little multiplayer coding in this REPL. Awesome. So I already see Derek right there. Awesome. 2 Sigma Steven, Teresa. Derek has to brag about being first. Hi, Derek. Awesome. And so you can see everyone who's up here. I can see your cursors here as well. Hi, everyone. And we even have a chat window. So in this threads, you can add a chat. And what's wonderful is that you have a general threads, but you can also tie threads to code. So this is going to be a really big deal for your students when maybe you're helping to annotate different parts of their code, you're giving them feedback or edits. This is going to be really useful as this thread right here. Okay, go ahead and try it out. And then I'm going to show off one of our brand new features, which is observation mode. So I'm going to click on Derek's avatar up here, and you'll see it now says observing Derek. And now Derek can, I'll see his cursor move around. If I were to create a new file in here. Oh, and he's coding. He's off and coding. Oh, why can't I add a file? Awesome. I would also, if I had multiple files in this, I would also be able to jump between files with him. So really good for when you're leading demos or code alongs. You can have your students observe you. Or if you just want to see them work through their own projects, you can observe them and it'll bring you through all the files in the project. You'll be able to follow their cursor, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Derek, there's a question in here. When I ran this with Java, about 6 students, it seemed laggy. Is there any performance recommendations? Yeah, so with Teams, all of our Teams REPLs run on a separate computing cluster, which essentially means that you get your own, all teams are like in their own server, essentially. They get the, so there's a lot more speediness when you're in a paid Teams subscription than if you're in a free Replit account, because then you're not sharing all of that.
It depends on how the person is asking it. If you're asking students to do individual coding, if you use it on our paid Teams plan, which we offer for free for your first semester, it's very, very, very fast. If you're just trying to demo code in front of students, you can buy an individual plan for $7 a month, which is on sale for $5 right now a month. If you just want to present code to students or share something that you created with students, that would also be very fast on the paid plan. That's just the individual plan. If you're running into an issue where you need to deploy or demo in a particular way, where it's either you presenting or it's something similar, email us and we'll try to figure out how to make sure it's speedy for you. Because of course, if you're having a laggy experience altogether, we should definitely know about that. And I'll type the education email in here too.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, always feel free to contact us. That's what we're here for, is to help you out. So if you're experiencing that, do let us know. Audrey, I'm happy to show you comments again. So we have comments that are associated with lines of code. So all you have to do is highlight some code and start a thread from there. Okay, so that'll show up like that. And then you'll also see it in our threads with this icon right here. Now, if you want to have chat that's not associated with threads, that can just kind of exist on its own, you can use the general threads. All right. And so one thing I'm really proud of with Replit is that we really build in our values into the product. So one of them, as you can see, is that we want it to be really, really accessible, right? You can access it on any device. And the other part is that it's super, super collaborative. So all of us are in here, we're able to collaborate. It's all about sharing. And so you can also publish your REPL and spotlight it. So if, say, for example, I really wanted some help with something and Derek had a template or already had a REPL that was really well done, he might spotlight it and share it with me. And that way I could view the code of his REPL, I could view the output, and I could fork my own version, but I wouldn't necessarily be able to edit his version unless I was invited with the join link. Okay, so that's Replit's like broadest product. That's what a lot of people come to Replit to do, is use this product. But you all are teachers, and so we actually have something called Teams for Education, which is this REPL, but packaged specifically for classroom use. So I'm going to jump into my Teams dashboard right here. Okay. And you'll see I've got a bunch of Teams for Education. All right, loads of them. So here we've got our organization. So if you're at a school, your school might be your organization. Then in there, you'll have all of your teams. And a team essentially maps onto the idea of a class. So if I have a fall APCSA cohort, that's going to be a team. If I have a spring one, that'll be another team. And we make it really easy to transfer content from one team to another so that you can teach the same class multiple semesters in a row with different students and have almost no setup time required. So let's jump into a team now. And once you've created a team, you'll see you can manage the team members. And there are 3 different levels of privilege in a team. There's the owner, which is the person who runs the whole organization. So that might be your administrator, your IT person, or the head teacher. Then we also have admins. So these would be instructors, TAs, etc. They can see all of the back end and make edits to the team. And then you have members, and members are students. So students are only able to see the projects that you publish. These words will make a lot more sense to you in just a moment. Now, you'll notice you can invite users by their username or email. You can invite them using this join link from a CSV file. You can also invite them using Google Classroom. So if you are already using Google Classroom as your LMS, just click on there, authorize it, and it'll bring in your students from your Google Classroom and have a number of different connections with it. You could add projects to Google Classroom. There's a gradebook forthcoming for Google Classroom. So a lot of integrations there. Now, if you look at this list, there are a few in here of my students who have a lock next to their name. What that means is that they were added to the classroom using this when this was checked off. And so what this does is when I share it with a student, here we're in a student window. Oops, I need to log out. All right, awesome. When we share it with a student, they'll get this generic username and then they'll create their own password. And this is so that your class can be fully FERPA COPPA compliant because we don't require the student's email address or any personal identifying information. They can keep this username or they can make it something like Lina or something like that that doesn't really indicate who they are. So again, their privacy is maintained and then they can create their own password and they'll be able to access your classroom. So actually, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to join this classroom. Okay, wonderful. And then below that, we have a Who's Coding tab section. So this is where if you have students who are actively coding in their project, you'll be able to see them, their name and the project they're in right here. So I love this when teaching with Zoom because if I had a student in the comments saying, Lina, I need a little help with this, I was able to jump right in. Okay. Some teachers use this as a test of who's paying attention. I don't always recommend it, but it is one way to kind of check in on folks. Kathy asks, with generic usernames, how do you tell students apart? It is tricky. I recommend that you tell them a naming convention that works for you. So maybe it's last initial first name or your class name and then their first name, something like that. But you can also give them nicknames. So like these are very difficult to determine, hard to tell who these people are. So if I double click, I can give them a nickname. And the nickname is only visible to admins. It's only within this team. So again, their privacy is still maintained. And I can give them another name in here. I'll give this one Noel's name. And now Noel's gonna show up. Where did you go, Noel? All right. Oh, now he's twice. Okay, my bad. Noel will show up in all of the project submissions. This name will show up everywhere for me as the admin. Noel won't be able to see it. No one else will be able to see it. Okay. Okay. Derek's feeling patriotic. Let's see. You're already Dr. Pepper. Ooh. There you go. So if it works with your gradebook to search for star flag, then by all means, go ahead and do that. But I recommend you don't poison yourself in that way. Joe asks, inviting students via Google Classroom works in a similar fashion. Yes, it does. It is still FERPA COPPA compliant. However, it pulls in the information from your Google Classroom. So I believe it's associated with their Google username. And so it'll automatically create these for them. They won't have to create a new username or anything like that.
Want me to demo it really quick?
I would love that. Are you able to screen share, Derek?
Yep. Oh, gotta enable it for me.
It's on.
You know what? I'll come back. I need to rejoin the meeting because I updated Zoom.
Okay. All right, so while he's working on that, are there any other questions about adding members, adding students, any of that stuff? Okay, awesome. And then actually, how many of you can react with a thumbs up, how many of you are using Google Classroom as your LMS? Okay, Joe, I see you. Audrey, Sheldon. Okay, so a few of us. Okay, awesome. Great. Noel, no. And then Kathy, they can't see nicknames. No, students cannot see their nicknames. So I could rename Derek Mr. Poopy Pants and he would have no idea. Again, not recommended, but a possibility. All right, I think the other Lina has entered the building.
Hi, I'm Lina again.
I know, it doesn't make any sense.
The link you shared with me must have been for Lina.
Yeah, oh, that is probably why.
Do you want me to share now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, folks, let's take a look here. I have a demo classroom. And so after you click on manage team members, it'll take you to a flow that is going to allow you to sync Google Classroom with your team. So you click on this, the first thing it's going to do is it'll ask you to authorize first, which just means that you grant Google Classroom permission. You might want to consult your district IT if it locks you out, just because not all IT admins will have third-party support turned on. So that would be with your IT administrator to check with them if it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work immediately. So we just add a Google Classroom. Here are some very simple classrooms that I have set up for a demonstration. Then you select which team. I have lots of teams. What's the name of your team, Lina?
Replit EDU. Teams EDU. There it is.
That
Go
one?
up, go up, go up.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it would pool all the students. So in this case, my demo team just has 2 coworkers. So I would select all. I want them to be part of my class, and it sends the invites. And so what this will do is the students will get an invite in their inbox using their school email. And it will then give them a special unique link just for them that will prompt them to go through the flow. So everything is FERPA and COPPA compliant. That's the important thing, is that the link that they're going to get is specially made for them. So that is especially made for them so that it is going to work with our COPPA compliance. So just a thing, it's different than this link, for example. So you can take this link and you can drop this in email. As long as this is checked, it will also be FERPA and COPPA synced, FERPA and COPPA compliant. However, it won't be synced to Google Classroom. So if you want them synced, you have to have them invite this way. I know it's like 3 different ways. It's just we have very different use cases for different types of teachers. Some people, like in universities, want to upload a CSV file because they don't have as many FERPA things that they need to consider at the college level, and it just depends. Any questions about that? Using this authorization will also allow you to use Google Gradebook in September. So it's a good idea to just, if you have Google Classroom integration, to just set this up at the beginning of the semester so that when we start syncing to the Google Gradebook, the grades will show up automatically. Any questions? I'm going to pause there. I know that was a lot. Like, this is a ton of stuff in a half hour. So I'll pause. Reactions, questions. Does anybody use an LMS that isn't Google Classroom? I would actually really like to know if you could just type in chat what LMS you use. Because I'm responsible for doing LMS integrations, it's really, yeah, we're going to add Canvas this fall.
Canvas, awesome.
I think 60% of our users use Google Classroom, so we're doing Google Classroom integration first. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now.
Cool.
Thank you, Lina.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. Awesome. Yeah, I used to use Canvas as well. I'll show you some of my Canvas tricks while we're here. Okay. Wonderful. All right, so we talked about, so we talked about managing team members, who's coding. Now let's talk about team projects. So in team projects, this is where you can add starter code, instructions, assets, etc., for your students to work. It's also where you'll be able to review student submissions and work in progress as soon as they've forked the project. So I'll walk you through the creation of a project right now. Create project, and I'll do this, give it a description, you can give it a due date, and I'm going to make this one a group project. Now you can make things group projects or individual projects. And only the students who are either in their group or the students who are working on the project, if it's individual, are able to see their work. So if you're concerned about academic integrity, we have that covered. So I'm going to make this a group project. Yeah, when I say, I apologize, a team project is essentially a REPL that is private to your team that your students then fork as their own. Okay. So once we're in here, I can create my starter code. I can add any assets that I want my students to have. I can also write tests. So we have two different types of tests, unit tests, which are available for Java, JS, and Python. You just add a test in here and a failure message. Then we also have IO tests. With IO tests, you'll give it a name. You can put in an input if you want, although it's, Derek, I thought C++ and C was the debugger.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll delete my comment.
Get out of here. Then you'll put the expected output, and then we have a few different types of tests. So we have match, exact, regular expressions, and then compatibility. For those of you who might have been switching over from classrooms into teams, compatibility just makes sure that the IO tests you wrote in classrooms can work now in teams. If you never use classrooms, don't even worry about it. Just use these top three. Okay. All right. Then from there, once I'm all done setting this up, I'm going to publish the project. And you can allow students to self-group. So this is really great if you're doing random breakout rooms in Zoom and you want students to be able to define their own groups, or you can assign them yourself by hitting publish and choosing, I'm gonna add some groups. You can drag and drop if you want, or you can auto assign. Okay. If there are students who you're like, this student is not ready for this yet, you can just not assign them. They won't be able to fork it. They'll have a notification saying that they're still waiting to be assigned to the project, so they won't be able to access it just yet. If you change your mind and you don't want this to be a group project anymore, you can get rid of these groups, add a whole bunch of groups, and then change the group size to 1. And just auto assign, and now it's an individual project. So you have some flexibility there. So then once you publish the project, it'll show up on your student team. And so this is my student view here. You'll notice, see, in this case, this student wasn't assigned to a group project, so I can't go anywhere. I can't fork this project yet. But with these ones, I was allowed to, so I can go ahead and start it. What that does is it immediately forks it for me. Okay, so I have all these assets. I have all this starter code ready to go. And this teacher can now see all of the students' work from the moment it's forked. So for those of you who might have been using just a general Replit before, you maybe had students share their join link or share their links with you. In this case, you don't need to wait for them to share it with you. You can just jump in here and view their work in progress and then collaborate very similarly to how we collaborated in that REPL together earlier. And all of those collaboration tools, those are also available for your students if they're working in groups. You'll also be able to see their submission dates and when you reviewed it. So I'll get into reviewing student work in just a moment. But I wanted to show you quickly what it looks like when there's a test. So in this project, I have 2 tests, or one input-output test. And so students are prompted to check their tests, okay? And then before they submit, they're going to be reminded to view the tests and run them. They can be that kid and submit anyway, but they are, again, on 2 occasions encouraged to run those tests before they submit. Noel, would you create a project for simple practice or code along? Definitely. In my experience, I do. I'll create either like blank projects with just a little bit of starter code so that we can do a code along together, and they'll have their own versions, and I can jump into their REPLs if they're having trouble or if they're getting different outputs than I am. And sometimes I'll even create a project called Cheat Sheet, which is just like a scratch pad for them. That's just theirs. They can like experiment in their sandbox, etc., without having to create a REPL on their own account. Yeah.
I can show you one trick that I used to do when I was teaching C++ and assembly at community college. I'll show you. Let me see where I'll do this. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So what I used to do is I would create a REPL, and let's say like I want a team to own it. So someone asked this, and so this is, I'm going to make a C++ REPL, and then I'll just say owned by the team. But really, this was our daily lesson. So I had one daily lesson project for my community college class, and I could own it myself, or I could put it in any of my teams. And this is really the hardest part about our product for most people to learn, is that when you click a new REPL here, by default, you own it, meaning it's like personal, it's in your personal profile. You can kind of think about this like your Gmail account, except we have all of them all together. And so you can own this, or you can change it to a team, and now like your organization owns it. So in this particular case, like your team, which might represent like one class that you have. And so this particular strategy, I could put this in my demonstration team. Then you get to choose public or private. So again, there's a little bit of a hesitation here. Private is usually good if you just want to keep it inside of your team. So I would actually have daily demonstration code. And so in C++, this worked really well because I compiled everything from the shell. I never used the run button. And so I could say something like, today is og4 .cpp. And so the lesson, I'd actually stop and we would write like our individual things in here. And so I could include standard IO and print hello world, and then do, I think we use Clang. Let me see if we have GCC installed. No, Clang, GCC -o. 4, and then I could just run it right here. And so I really wanted students to learn the command line a little bit, at least enough to know how to compile. And so our shell is extremely powerful for that. They can see me do all of these powerful things, and then they get to go use this as a reference. And so I would create a new file for every day. And I found that really effective. Just because they could go back in the lecture notes that were all dated with particular days, and they could be like, oh, because sometimes we riff, right? Students would ask something, they'd be like, oh yeah, let's look at like, so, you know, we would like do something like, let's create an array of integers, and like, let's go do some pointer manipulation and look at the individual addresses. So we might be like, you know, address X, and then put in like, I guess just our pointer and just see what happens. And so we'll compile that. I think are these all warnings? Let's go. Sorry, my Zoom controls are in the way of me seeing anything. Oh. Oh, I need to give it a size. So like, let's do some pointer manipulation. So there's this is what happens when you code live, right? You make the same mistakes the kids do. Okay, so there we go. So like, we're looking at the actual pointer address. And so like, in this particular case, it's like, oh, okay, so this is the start of the array. And so I could say this is like R0, and I could say, let's move forward by 1, 2, and we can actually look at the individual addresses of each slot and say like, well, this is how the memory works. And we'll compile it again. That's going to warn me. And so then here are the individual like pointer addresses that they expect. And you can see that it's going up by 4. And that's because the compiler understands that this is a pointer to an array, and arrays of integers. Each integer takes up 4 bytes. And so then it moves forward by 4 bytes. And so like, that's something that I would be here. Like maybe this wasn't something I was planning where, you know, we're just talking about the basics of pointers or the basics of an array. And they're like, wow, I want to try this. So just a quick tip.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. Yeah, what you'll probably find as you use Replit is it's quite dynamic. It's very flexible. And so I have my best practices that I recommend for folks. You might very likely find your own, and I'm very happy to hear those too. But I think one of our strengths is in that there is so much that you can do with Replit, and there are a lot of different pathways that you can take. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Okay. So once students have started their work, they've forked your starter code through your projects, and you might want to start grading it. There are a few different options. So the first is to jump into the submissions right here. And you can filter these by submitted, reviewed, not reviewed, etc. And you can view each REPL from here. And you'll have this Teams tab in your sidebar, and you can navigate through each student's project, mark it as reviewed, view the history of the project, and leave your annotations or your notes for them in the chat. Then you can toggle through using these arrows to move between student projects. Or if you're working on, if you just want specific students, you can go here and navigate to view a list of all the students' names right there. Okay, or search it also. This number right here, I just want to clarify, this is for the number of projects that have been reviewed. So 3 out of 7, 4 out of 7, etc. It's not the number of project that you're on at the moment. Okay. So that's one way to review student work, is by stepping through one by one like that. If you would rather get a bird's eye view, you can go into projects overview. I'll show that one more time. It's right here. And you'll get a table with all of your student projects and all of your students. And so it'll show you the status of each individual project. So we've got in progress, completed, waiting for review. So I haven't marked it off as reviewed. And projects also that have IO tests, you can see those test results by hovering over these little dots. So you'll see in this case, none of those tests passed. So I'm going to check in on this REPL and see what they might need to change. Some students may not have run their tests yet. Okay. This you can export as a CSV if you're trying to integrate it into other LMS systems. And you have a progress bar, which shows completed projects, excuse me. So submitted projects, I should say. Okay. Now, one of you asked about a debugger, and so I'm happy to show you that. So we're getting into some of our new and exciting features now. And so here, Derek's already in here. Derek, do you want to talk about the debugger?
Yeah, I'll take it away. So like,
sure.
We have this really cool debugger, and this debugger works the same way in Java and Python and JavaScript and C++ and C. So it has all of these different languages that are supported, but the UI and the way that it functions is totally the same. And so what we have here is a really silly app. And so I'm going to go ahead and run the debugger without any breakpoints. And so we have in our debugger, and I'm not sharing my screen because this is a real-time debugger. I actually started it on my side, and Lina's screen is coming up here. So it says no module name play. So in this particular case, it's having trouble trying to figure out what this like play module is. And so in that particular case, that's not really helpful for debugger. It's just the project is misconfigured. So I know on my end that it's trying to find a package that is named something else. And so let me find that. I think it'll actually just install that. We need to update this demo so that the package is already installed. Okay, so I'm running it from my end, and you're going to see inside the console. So go switch tabs, Lina. I'm installing it on my end, but this part of the demo takes a second to pop up. What I will show is I'm going to go into the debugger window. And so you're going to see this open up now. It's because the package is installed. So what we're doing is we're actually streaming a native application to you. You are seeing from the cloud, from Google Cloud, we are streaming to you a live application. And I'm actually moving the cursor right now, not Lina. And I'm going to go click, and the point is to go click. And if you click on Mark, he turns into Goofy Mark. Like, it's a very simple, like, whack-a-mole kind of game. And so in this particular case, what's interesting for students to inspect is to understand how a random number generator works. And so Lina has put a breakpoint, I see. So Lina, why don't you show them just where the breakpoint is? There it is. And so right above that, we generated 2 random numbers in Python. And I just want to halt the debugger. So I'm going to stop the program from running. So you can see that the window closed. I'm going to run it from the context of the debugger so we can inspect what the random number generator is doing. So this is booting up right now. And what we're going to see is it has stopped execution. And so I'm seeing on my end the same thing that she's seeing on her computer. And I can see that I have 143 and 200. And so I'm going to actually go to the next breakpoint. And so it's released control. And now the game loop has come back around because this is an infinite loop that drives the game. And what it's going to do is it's going to render mark. And so I'm going to step over, I'm going to step over, I'm going to step over, and I see, hey, wait a second. After stepping a couple times, the sprite appeared. That's kind of weird. Okay. And then I'm going to step over, and I'm going to step over. All right. And I'm going to step over again. And I noticed that the sprite disappeared again. Like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to step over. I'm going to step over. Let's see. Okay. And I got new random numbers. Okay. 126 and 172. Okay. I'm stepping over. Oh, wait. And then the sprite appeared. So from that, we can infer that sprite.show on line 21 must have something to do with it showing up on the screen. And when I say sprite.x equals x and sprite.y equals y, that must have something to do with position. And so we feel that this real-time debugging where you and the students can pass control back and forth in a classroom to say, hey, set a breakpoint, let's try running this. And we can really help build up those inference skills and problem solving skills by using a debugger where you and the student are both taking control. So for example, Lina, go ahead and you take control of the debugger now. Yeah, so now she has control of the debugger. I've released control and she is driving the program execution. I'm not touching anything. So we have a lot of more features we're going to continue to add. For example, the call stack is there. You can actually inspect all of the functions that have executed beforehand so you can help students understand. It helps you understand global variables, so things that are outside of the function scope. You can see there the packages that are installed. That's just a little preview of a debugger. We're going to have some curriculum come out that'll specifically teach students how to use a debugger, because that's its own skill. It's its own engineering discipline, really, because it doesn't really come in any computer science curriculum. Like, how do I debug a program that doesn't work? And so this is the beginning. And I think that when we start to engage students in specific problem solving tasks where they're addressing code that's already broken, and trying to problem solve through code that's broken, it's going to unlock a different capability in students.
So we're really excited about Debugger. You can see it's in beta right now, so I really encourage you to give it a shot, try it out, and let us know what you think, and even let us know how you're using it, right? Derek just gave one instance of what it's useful for, right? Going line by line in code, having students infer what each line might do. But how might you use it in your classrooms? I'd love to learn more. All right. Then for those of you who are Canvas users, if you click on this kebab on the side of the project, you'll see options to copy the embed code. That's just an HTML iframe. So maybe if you're using a separate LMS or you're building a site for your students to access their projects on, you can embed it in through an iframe here. If you're in Canvas, what I'll generally recommend is to copy the student project link and then create an assignment that is an external URL. And that way Canvas will create an iframe with the project within it. Important to note, students still have to be logged into their Replit account to be able to access the project within the iframe. But once they're logged in, you could add all of these to Canvas and have your course exist just within Canvas if you want. There's also the shared to Google Classrooms. That's another integration that we had mentioned earlier. And I can also edit the title of the project from here. Now, this is the second to last thing I'm going to show you, and then I want to open it up to questions. So the name of these projects includes also the organization. So in this case, we have interaction demo inside of a folder called demos. You'll notice I've got this unit called demos and I have interaction demo. If I had multiple projects in a unit that I wanted to organize, I could do so numerically by adding a number right here between. So you can easily organize your projects so that your students know which sequence to do them in. Okay. The last thing I want to show you is just a sneak peek at something that we have coming up for the fall, which is our curriculum hub. When you sign up for teams, a lot of folks have to create their own teams from scratch from all of the amazing resources they've collected over time. CS Awesome helps people so much because there are so many wonderful resources on there that folks can plug in. And so we want to do something similar. So we want to have a library of curriculum for Python, HTML and CSS, SQL, Java, Teachable Machine, you name it, that folks can just access and duplicate right into their own teams. So for example, if I wanted to draw some of this Python curriculum into my Replit team, I can click on Share Projects. I'm going to delete this so that I can create a new one. And then I'm going to select any of the projects that I want to import into my team. So I'll do all of the cryptography ones, all of these. I'll save it. And now when I open this link, I can select what team I'd like it to go into. And then I can select the projects that I want to import into that team and import them in. This same copy project link is what you can use if you teach the same course semester after semester, year after year after year to copy projects over from team to team to team. Okay. And then we'll also have instructions and lesson plan files in each project so that, let's see, I'll show you in here. So in an exercise, I have a lesson plan, and instructions, right? I'm sure some of you have probably done code alongs with students in a README or with a README, and they start coding in the README. That's happened to me before. It's been confusing. So with this, we'll have both of these files in the Markdown, and I'm going to jump into a team where I have access to this here. Okay. I think, oh, maybe I don't anymore. Derek might have gated it again. But essentially, what it will be is that those instructions and lesson plans will be accessible to the students in a third pane. They'll be able to view the instructions while they're working, in addition to their text editor and their output. And you'll be able to include all the things you can include in Markdown: images, links, you can embed stuff, and you can continue to propagate that out. So if you realize one set of instructions really wasn't clear, you want to update it, you can make sure to update it, and then all of the students' versions will change as well. So that we're super excited about is this curriculum hub and these new curriculum tools of having the instructions in the lesson plan Markdown. So that is enough of me talking. I am happy to take your questions now, and I'll also add a little bit more information on the cost of teams, which I know some of you had asked about. But are there any questions here that I can answer? Awesome. Well, I'll talk about our pay structure then instead of typing it in. So at the moment, our pay structure is based on teams. So a single team is $350 per year or $35 a month. Or you can get unlimited teams for $1,000 a year or $750 a year if you are a K through 12 school. We will be shifting that model to a per student model in the coming months. And that will change to be a flat licensing fee of $150 for a team. And then per student, K through 12 will be $8 a student, and per student higher ed will be $11 a student. We understand a lot of you folks are paying out of pocket for this for any number of reasons with your schools, budgets, etc. And so we also have an option for teachers to have up to 30 students and unlimited teams for $35 a month. So if right now is a great time, you know, both of these possibilities, so you can do the math and figure out which one works best for you. We're happy to lock you into our current plan for the year, or we can get you started on our new plan if that works for you better. But that is it. Randy, you stayed the whole time. Wow.
I know I can always learn something new watching you folks work. So I like the debugger. I'm gonna have to really dig into that because yeah, I think it might be time to teach students to use a debugger instead of print statements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this gives loads of time with that. No, do you necessarily need to create a separate team for each class period? No, you don't. It's, again, one of those best practices that I like to use so that my submissions don't end up too bogged down with a bunch of students, and so that students in my former classes aren't getting notifications about my new class. Also, with our new payment structure, all of those are unlimited team subscriptions. It's just a certain number of students. And so you should have no problem just creating a new team and archiving the old teams, copying those projects over so that you can start anew each cohort. Randy asked about Canvas integration. Are you talking about what's coming? Ooh, I can't answer any of those questions.
September, we're trying to figure out how to get the engineering resources to make it happen, but
And what kind of things are you going after with the Canvas integration? I mean, it would be nice if even if it could just, indicate when a student has submitted the assignment. Even better would be when the assignment has passed all the tests.
Yeah, what we'll probably do is I'm a pretty avid Canvas user myself. There is something called external tool in Canvas. And so it'd be installed as an external tool.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody else, since this is the CS, a lot of people here are using CS Awesome. They have this beta feature in the electronic textbook. Pauline, you probably know about this, right?
Or the LTI integration.
Yeah, where it will, you as an external tool, it will give back the grade on an assignment to Canvas. And yeah, you have to install it as an external tool and give it some magic numbers. But even that would just be a huge deal.
Yeah, that's our goal. I think that with a lot of this stuff, we're focusing on Google Classroom first and then Canvas. When we build Canvas integration, we'll have more generic LTI capabilities. And so that means that you could be put in Schoology or
yeah, no, I totally make sense.
or whatever crazy LMSs, Blackboard. Most LMSs use LTI these days. And so,
right. Yeah, Google, I hardly want to call it an LMS because it doesn't really use any of the cool LMS features. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good news. Thank you.
I just posted a link in the chat to our Canny board. This is where you can put feature requests, and it's really useful for us because, as you know, excuse me, if we have something that's on the roadmap that's coming up, as we plan for it, we look at your feedback and make sure that we integrate as many pieces of user feedback and needs as we can. So feel free to add to the Canny board. That's what we'll be sorting through as we go through the design and development of this update.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. The stuff that gets a lot of traction on Canny gets done. And so we listen to our community. We try to do as much as we can, but we need a tool to capture all that that's not email.
And there's a specific thread on LTI integration.
I just added my name to the people requesting it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy.
All right, I'm gonna jump off. You said you were gonna show something new. Did you already show what you were gonna show, Lina?
I was gonna show the curriculum stuff, Derek, but I wasn't seeing it on my end.
Refresh.
Let me refresh it.
So you've posted that curriculum that people have worked on already?
Not just yet. So this is coming in a couple weeks. That's why I needed Derek to ungate it for me. But here you go. Let me share. Actually, let me do a new share. Desktop. There you go. So in this Teams tab in the toolbar, I've got lesson plan and instructions. And what I can do is this by clicking plus. This will automatically add lesson plan and instructions markdown templates to my file tree. Got them right here, right here. Got a template. And then for the students, so if I go ahead and publish this project and refresh for my student. All right. Now my student will be able to see the instructions in their project as a second window. Maybe, oh, you might need to, sorry, Derek, you might need to whitelist this user too. Here, I'll put it in the in the chat.
Make sure you upload the instructions.
Oh, maybe that's it.
So sorry to keep asking questions. So this is some new integration that you've added so that if you're creating your own curriculum, you've got these templates that people can use.
Yeah, that's right.
But though this is not yet visible to the general public. Okay. And this is the kind of thing that you say is going to be coming later this month. Okay. Cool.
Lina, what's the username for that user?
Let me find it for you. There you go. Put it in the chat. So, all right, I'll show this again though. So basically what this does is it allows me to define instructions again in the lesson plan. So if you're like, I want the world to know my curriculum, you're gonna wanna write a lesson plan. You can also use a lesson plan to store solutions, stuff, notes for yourself, etc. Because students will not be able to see this lesson plan markdown. It's only gonna be visible to admins. Then in the instructions markdown, students will be able to view this, but they won't be able to edit it. It'll be read only. And if there's like something that you want to change about these instructions, because maybe they weren't all the way clear or you just needed to edit it a little bit, you can update them and click these little arrow buttons and it'll repropagate those to your students. So I'm going to try it again from a student view. Just getting them.
Oh, you actually have to refresh. It just navigating won't change the gating. You have to like there. Yeah, you got a hard refresh. There it is.
Ah, there it is. Okay. So you'll see we have instructions up here. And then their text editor, and then their console and shell still there on the bottom. Pretty cool. To answer the question in the chat, yes, we have a few different ways for you to learn about all of these new updates as they come out. We have our changelog on our blog. So this is a new monthly blog post that shows you all of the updates, new features, squashed bugs, etc. that have come to Replit. And I also send out a monthly newsletter to teachers with updates that specifically impact you all, feature updates or important things to know about teams or anything like that. You can also follow me on Twitter. Sorry to be that person. I'll put it in the chat, but I'll put updates there as well occasionally. And you can also always, you can ping me there if you have questions, if Twitter is your main form of communication. All right. Awesome. So it's been an hour. It's been so lovely to meet you all and speak to you. I'm sure some of you are hoping to get on with your evenings, but I want to thank you for joining us this evening. You are super, super welcome to email us again, education@replit.com. We have a free 4-month trial of Teams. So if you want to try this out for your fall semester, please do let us know. We'll get you set up. And actually, let me put the link in the chat for that as well. You can go to this page and scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you can get yourself a free trial to try out all these things I've just shown you. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you, Lina and Derek. Your time is definitely greatly appreciated. And thank you to everyone who joined. We will definitely make sure we share the recording for those. Yes, we will. For those who joined late and who were not able to make it live tonight, but indicated that they were looking forward to the recording. So again, thank you to Lina and Derek, and look for our upcoming webinars. We do have one next week, same time. Coding Rooms will be joining us next week. So thank you again and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank
Take care.
you.